which is a configuration in the bioenergetic field, a very specific configuration of the ratios between electrical and magnetic spin that creates what's called a vehicle of light and sound. It's a scalar configuration that changes the way the chakra system works. It changes the angular rotation of particle spin. So you can literally disappear and pop up someplace else. There are beings of higher evolution who have full control over this process, and they can pop in and out wherever they want to in whatever time matrix they want to. That's what a lot of the higher beings are visiting. That's how they visit right now. So sometimes you'll literally have them pop up in your kitchen and there's beings standing there. Sometimes they'll be solid, sometimes they'll be semi-solid. So this is part of visitation. This is considered physical visitation because they're coming into the physical reality field. They're not just talking to you from up there, and they're not pulling you out of body to take you up. They are dealing with you directly here. So that is physical visitation. They sometimes do it in ships, but very often ships are actually the cloaked perception of Merkaba, of a group Merkaba, where you may be taken on a ship with 10,000 crew members. But what that really is, in higher dimensions, is one entity manifesting itself as ship and 10,000 crew members. When you get into the higher dimensional fields, we are dealing with Gestalt consciousness. When we become our avatar selves, we realize we are one of many. All of those incarnational selves that we are simultaneously, we are that, and we are also more. So a lot of times when you're having ships come down, you're actually having entities come down, and this is what they look like in pieces. They look like different beings in different bodies in a craft. So this is some of the other type of visitation that's taking place. There are plasma ships, which look like they're not quite solid. Some people have photographs of these. They look like light, and they kind of get sort of gelatinous, and then they change shape, and they can shapeshift and pop in and pop out. These are, again, coming from the higher harmonics, primarily fourth harmonic density, where they can do Merkaba, they can change the angular rotation of particles, they can control the manifestation of matter. When you're dealing with guys who come in and just not some old ships, the real heavy metal things, you're dealing with primarily harmonic 2. Because the higher beings and the higher races don't need that kind of craft. Sometimes beings in the higher fields will come in and manifest a type of craft that may appear to be metal, but it's really living metal. We're like living craft. They're actually consciousness. The structure, the metal form of the place, the spaceship itself is a being. They will do this for people that they need to take into the higher time fields who don't have DNA that's activated high enough yet. The ships can serve as a barrier to some degree to take you through a portal, even if your DNA isn't ready yet to go through that portal. If you try to walk through it by yourself, you'd end up going into spontaneous combustion because the body can't handle that level of radiation frequency. But if you go into one of these ships, they form a barrier. So you can be taken at least to some degree into a different space. There's contact being run like this too. A lot of people that are having ship contact are really being taken into higher dimensional spaces, higher time fields, in order to have certain kinetic acceleration done. So eventually they'll be able to walk through those stargates, walk through those portals. But right now they have to be taken through by ship or they wouldn't make it through. Okay, so there's various interesting physical manifestations in physical visitation category. You've got to realize physical is multidimensional. It's not as simple as nuts and bolts what you see before your eyes, as our science tends to like to teach us. We have physical on this level, physical on the next level. It's just as real in harmonic 2 as it is in harmonic 1. All of those levels of matter density are just as physically real. It's just a different type of physicality. It's just a different type of matter density, but they're all just as real. Okay, another type of visitor contact is telepathy. This is where you hear little beings not quite whispering in your ear. You don't really hear them, but you feel as if you hear them. You feel as if you know they're talking to you because you know something's talking to you. Sometimes you'll get audio, but very often it won't even be like an inner somebody talking in your head. It'll be more like a direct cognition, like a hear-feel. You feel it as if someone was talking. This is thought transference. It's a direct cognition type language. And you hear it, but you don't quite hear it. It's not the same sound as here. Okay, it's not the same sound as even when you think to yourself. It's a little bit different. All right. There's a difference between telepathy and some of the other forms that like channeling and those kind of things. Telepathy is a thought transference. We could all learn telepathy by working with our fourth DNA strand and learning to take a thought form and get it very focused and then take it as energy and project it through our heart chakras to each other's heart chakra, and then run it up to the pineal where it would expand. All right? There are ways to run telepathy. The telepathy does not hurt your biofield. It is not somebody else merging its energy field with yours. It's just a little signal of energy coming over and translating through you. When they get into channeling, some people get into channeling, and if you're channeling something that's in your own higher identity structure, you're fine. It has coding that matches yours. But if you start channeling things you don't know what they are, that's not the same as telepathy. Telepathy is like talking on the telephone. Channeling is like having somebody come and stand in your body. That's what it is. They link their scalar template, the communicators from higher dimensional fields, link their scalar template with your scalar template. And if you happen to be incompatible, if you're not out of the same family of consciousness where your coding is the same, their frequency is higher than yours. It will begin to crush the natural coding of your scalar template, of your lower three strands. Channeling can be very dangerous unless you know who you're channeling and why. And most of the beings from higher consciousness will not use channeling specifically for that reason. They will use other forms. They will use telepathy. They will use chelotic communication, where they leave little email balls of information that you can translate whenever you desire. They will manifest before you. They will use channeling only if it's within your own direct family lineup, within your own soul, oversoul, avatar, rishi level of identity. Then it's okay, as long as your fields are sealed. Again, Maharic seal technique that we're going to get to. That will create a 12th dimensional frequency seal. It seals you to your avatar level of consciousness. So you don't get interference of something coming in and directing you where you don't belong. So when we're dealing with telepathy, telepathy is a good form of contact. Channeling is good only under certain circumstances. A, sealed biofield. B, only within your own matrix. Otherwise, even if it's a good guy that you're channeling, if it's a good guy, if you're not from the same family of consciousness and have too much code discrepancy between their templates and yours, there's a still high frequency. It's going to start to crush your DNA template, which is going to start to block your own ability to bring in your own higher dimensional consciousness. This is why most Melchizedeks out there will not endorse channeling. They tend to look at it like across the board, this is bad. You know, we don't look at it across the board. We say sealed channeling only, and only within the family lines. And if you don't have the information where you can make those two things happen and be sure they are, then don't do it until you have the information to do that. There are other ways of interdimensional contact. Okay?
There's a man named Daryl Inca who channels Bashar, who is somewhere up there, and he says he's an Essassani in the third dimension, so that's still in our 1, 2, 3 there. So he's over here somewhere. What did Essassani fit into the scheme of the good guys, bad guys, and all that stuff?
Essassani. Oh, I have a little bit on them. They're originally out of the Elohai families, but a lot of things that fell were out of the Elohai families. The Essassani, I think, did he say third dimension or third density?
Third density.
Third density.
Yes.
That's harmonic 3. Okay.
That's 9.
Yeah,
Or
that would be the 7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be in the oversoul level. So he's communicating with a portion of his own incarnate self
Right.
in
Right.
the oversoul dimensional fields. Yeah. Because the Essassani are, I'm not even sure which exact matrix they came out of because I've not dealt with them directly, but from everything I've known about them, they're fine. They're not manipulators. From what maybe I am wrong. I will admit I have not researched who they are.
Well, his information sounds like your information.
Oh,
That's what we keep whispering over here.
Because I have not had any negativity or anything told to me about that particular contact, that there was anything negative. Just like with the Athian, I think they deal with the Essassani a little bit, the Memphis ones. I think there's some kind of rapport between those two races. Yeah, I'd have to look into that more. I try to get the basic ones that are directly interfacing here with agendas. There's actually thousands of different ones interfacing.
Don't tell us.
Okay. Now, another form of communication is our contact. Happens in the dream state. Now, we don't understand our dream state here, at least scientifically, we don't. If we can understand that we have these higher structures of identity, right? We have our D4 self, our D5 self. These are all structured parts of our identity. But we have a DNA pattern that's all chewed up. Its template is not active in the right places. So when you lay your body down and move your consciousness out into your higher spaces, and then bring it back and try to bring back the memory which is stored in the form of frequency, back into the body. It hits that DNA and goes, bleh, it splatters all over the place. So you get fragments here and fragments there. What did that dream mean? That kind of thing. As we activate our fourth DNA strand, we begin to progressively go from fragment dreaming into lucid dreaming, into astral projection and out-of-body experience. This is all fourth strand stuff. So when we are dealing with beings that communicate with us first in the dream state, what that's really saying is they are communicating with us in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional levels of consciousness. And when we come back into body after our sleep state, where we disengage a portion of our consciousness out into the next harmonic, we will only remember pieces of it, or sometimes not at all, until the fourth strand begins to activate. See, any experience that you have from D4 up, if you're only on a third strand activation template, you're just not going to be able to remember while you're consciously awake in your body. So the more you activate the template, the more you remember. And a lot of the contact is done there because if certain information is given to you on the astral level, that means it's information that's electronically or digitally encoded into the fourth DNA strand template. It's also coded into your astral body. What that will do is slowly that information will downscale and it will drop in frequency and go into the third strand template and begin to enter your mental body where it starts to become part of your conscious awareness. Then it'll work into your second strand template and down into your emotional body where you'll start to get the real feeling sense of it. And eventually it'll hit your first strand template and it'll become really physically solid. I know this is real, I remember this perfectly. You know? So you have this strange memory distortion when you're dealing with interdimensional contact, because it takes your DNA a while to sequence all of those frequencies that are coming in from the multidimensional spectrum. When they're communicating with you or taking you, say, on a ship in the astral body, it's just as valid as being taken in this body. But it doesn't seem real to this body until the fourth strand plugs in and until you ground that experience in frequency all the way down into the first dimensional levels of the self, into the molecular body, into the first DNA strand template. Then you know you were physically there. So there's a level of awakening that we'll all go through in contact experience. It will become more and more real in physical solid terms, the more and more of our higher consciousness we bring in. It's a frequency thing. There's a physics behind it. Okay. One of the other forms of contact that usually is used by the guardian types. Very rarely is it used by the negative types because it's kind of difficult to orchestrate. Chaotic communication. I've talked about this as being part of the way some of the information in the books is given, where they're able, beings of higher dimensional frequency, are able to create either in etheric matter or pre-matter form what look like spheres of energy. And they can encode them with digital mathematical instructions that hold cognition, hold information. When those digital instructions are taken and put into the frequencies of a human body, and they can be run through the energy currents that are called the Kundalini currents, that will open up into the natural processes in the body itself. See, there's a natural perception creation process, a holographic process the body goes through just to experience 3D reality. If you put one of these communication spheres in, holds a bunch of information for you, run your Kundalini through it, your Kundalini gives it a signature, it tells it what language to translate it into. It begins to translate it into the scalar patterns that are characteristic to your particular DNA template. You get a language translation in your home language. So this is chaotic communication. It's not channeling where something's coming in and fusing its field with yours. It's not telepathy where something's sending a little line of live communication over. This is psychic email, where you're being left a message in energetic form for, at your convenience, you can bring it in and open it up and read it. Okay? So this is another type. Sometimes it's very difficult to tell the difference at first between chaotic communication and channeling. Channeling it's very hard to tell sometimes because when you get chaotic communication, it may have, just like you can do a video and stand there and talk to somebody and your presence is there but you're not really there anymore when they get the video. The chaotic communication can be like that, where there'll be a personality feel to it. And sometimes it's somewhat interactive within a space, like you'll know what certain questions you may have, so you can ask the questions and you'll get an answer back, that kind of thing. There's a whole different feel when you start to sense the energies involved. It isn't a live connection, though you feel a live carry behind it, behind the sender. Okay, just like you can feel the the person that you know cares about you from across the country emailed you. You can feel the concern in their words and the caring in their words. Same thing with chelonic communication. That is not a dangerous form of communication. That you will only be able to translate what your DNA can hold. If you have a 12-dimensional frequency transmission there to translate, and you're only at 4th-strand activation, you will only be able to get in 4-dimensional frequencies of that information. So they're time-released. As your DNA activates, you will get more and more information from these chelonic modules, they're called. They're almost like time-released information capsules. Okay? And one of the other forms of the last one, of visitor contact, is of course abduction or invitation or Merkaba teleportation. Now this involves, all right, when we have physical contact, they come in here. When we have abduction and invitation, we go there. Okay? So this is the distinction I'm making here. With when you have things coming in and manifesting down here, they're visiting you. But when you're being abducted, they're forcefully making you visit them. Or when you're being invited and being able to go with them, that is you leaving your space to go into their space-time space. So it's a different type. There is a difference between that and them coming down and visiting. Very often they'll come down and visit in order to create the other type of interaction. But not always. A lot of times you may have abductions or contact invitations that have nothing to do with seeing things. You may just all of a sudden find yourself someplace else. This is a very strange experience. I've had this happen numerous times when I was in training in certain things, where I was simply hyperspace, and I was physically completely someplace else. I've also had the bilocation thing where you know part of you is there and another part of you is in a different time-space frame, but then there's when the whole body goes. That's called entering quadrophase Merkaba, and it literally changes the angular rotation of particle spin so fast that you end up popping out of here, popping up someplace else. I've experienced it, I can't control it, and I'm looking forward to learning how to control it. I know the theory, but it's another thing to get the DNA template to clear its distortion so where you can activate that. But that's some of the things we're working on. Right now, we'll have people that are being abducted. Abduction usually applies to negative, okay? Because you're not exactly abducted by the positive guys. You're invited sometimes on the soul level, on the higher dimensional consciousness. You don't remember it yet, so it seems like you're being taken against your will. But when you start to wake up and remember who you were, you remember you'd agreed to it. Okay, it was part of your soul contract, or it was part of your birth contract when you came in. So a lot of what appear to be abductions really aren't. They're just invitations that you forgot about. But it sounds funny, but it's true. And on the same token, there are certain abductions, particularly the abductions that involve medical experimentation. Guardian visitors tend to not do this. They don't need to do this. They're working with the light sound technologies. They're working with scalar technologies. They don't need to leave scoop marks and take genetic material out of you. So if you have those type of abductions, you're probably dealing with Zetas that have something to do with the interior government. They're the ones you want to disengage. Okay? There are higher things to talk to. Okay? So, when I was talking about the teleportation, that is called going into Merkaba. In order to pass through a Stargate, you have to go into Merkaba. In order to ascend, you have to go into Merkaba. I've given a whole workshop on Merkaba mechanics and even on the planetary level, because actually the planet itself passes into the state of Merkaba during a stellar activation cycle. That's why we need to begin to regenerate the ability to do that in our own bodies if we're going to keep up with the frequencies of the planet between now and 2017.
Which was May 5th.
Which was?
The solar, was the sun stellar?
Actually, it started on January 1st.
Right.
On January 1st, the fourth vortex opened and the stellar bridge grounded. On May 5th, the Templar actually opened and the fourth vortex activated. So we're progressively moving into this now. As of May 5th of 2000, we have frequencies of the fourth dimension beginning to move themselves through the planetary scalar grids. This is progressively going to make time move faster. Okay? This is going to affect our bodies if we can't get our fourth square DNA function. Because the atmosphere is going to be transmitting D4, and if you can only absorb D3, it's like, if you look at your scalar template of your body that manifests everything else on top of it as crystalline in structure. If you take a frequency that's stronger than it, it's like taking a hammer and bashing those crystals and crushing them. So if you can't receive, if you don't have the fourth strand template beginning to activate, you can't pull in the frequencies of the fourth dimensional frequencies that are starting to come down now through the solar light spectrum. You won't be able to bring it into the body. It'll start crushing the template of the body. It's called molecular compaction. And it's actually the cause of death at all. Human bodies weren't designed to die. It's because the scale up, the ability to bring in the higher levels of consciousness, the higher frequencies, has been blocked. And when that consciousness tries to integrate, it can't get into the body. It progressively crushes the scalar template, and that progressively erodes and deteriorates the body. Okay? We have a great opportunity with the frequencies coming into the planet now, because we can regenerate. We can use those frequencies to very rapidly regenerate the 12-strand DNA pattern. It doesn't have to get us. It doesn't have to harm us. It's just a matter of realizing you have this template to work with, and there are certain things you can do, literally with your own consciousness, to run energy and direct energy, that will begin to allow you to accept that kind of frequency into your body. So instead of it being harmful to you, it's actually helpful. It will help you get more happy. That's why we also gave a whole workshop on coping skills for the coming earth changes. We weren't talking about so much floods and earthquakes. We were talking about frequency changes and the DNA changes and what we need to work with to get our DNA working for us instead of against us, that kind of thing. Because there are some distortions in the DNA from other periods of time, from when the Anunnaki interfered. How am I doing? See people looking at their watches.
Can we take a 10-minute break, just do a stretch break?
Does everybody want to take a break? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We do maybe like 10, because we have to be out of the building for 10:30. And I want to make sure I...
Just make it a 5-minute.
Okay. Okay. See, I'm scary. I can just keep talking and talking and talking. Are you enjoying this? It's out called The Indigo Children. I want to know if it was about this. That book, I know the one, I believe I know the one you're referring to. I forget the lady. I met her. She was one of the co-authors of it. They're studying the phenomena of indigo children primarily through the issues of ADD, attention deficit disorder, and attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I would like, first of all, they don't realize that they're hybrids. Okay, the people that wrote those books, they don't have that information yet. And there's a lot of other people in the New Age movement that talk about the indigo children, but nobody seems to know who they are or what they are. Okay, we've been exposing right down to the DNA content, who and what they are. And I know because I am one. And the book, it gives you some insights into some of the characteristics associated with it. Indigo children can have a really rough time if certain things that they picked up in the DNA imprint from the parental gene code is very distorted. That will cause a lot of problem for them because they come in with the 6th DNA strand activated. That means they're pulling 6-dimensional frequency and consciousness into the body even as an infant. And if there are distortions in the gene code template that they inherited from the parents, that can create a lot of backed up, built up energy that bounces around all over the place. And they can have behavior problems. They can, autism, for example, is usually autistic children are indigo children. SIDS children, sudden infant death syndrome, is directly connected to indigo children. All right, there are major issues out there that, you know, we don't know where they're coming from, that are directly connected to the indigo children. One of them is what they call attention deficit disorder. But I would like to shatter that illusion real fast, because right now, it's even there, somebody sent me an email about this lawsuit in Texas that's being brought against the makers of a certain drug that's used to treat ADD. They're being accused of creating false criteria, creating a disease in order to have their drug cell treated. And it goes further than that. The One World Order agenda that's being run through the Zeta reptilian races and human Illuminati and Nephilim that are associated with them, they are targeting indigo children and the Gray Alliance because they have the DNA that can override the frequency fences here, and they have the DNA that can get control of the planetary grids right out from under them. What's being called ADD and ADHD are not even real diseases. There is no proof that there's biochemical imbalances that cause them, but they make it look like there's proof. These diseases are not diseases. They've been criteria invented to spot certain groups of people in order to get them under chemical mind control. And that's what's going on with the ADD movement. That's one of the biggest and most right in your face thing that's going on, but we're taught to perceive it as something else. Just like we've been taught all along to perceive humans as one like cluster of beings that are all the same. So we don't ever think about maybe there are portions of us that are part reptilian, maybe there are portions of us that are part Anunnaki. We're taught to see a thing as something different. The best way to hide something is to put it right in front of people's faces and call it something else, and get them to believe it's something else. That's what's being done all over the place, particularly with the ABD movement. The Indigo children are the incarnate members. In fact, every one of them are incarnate members of the Emerald Order of Melchizedek Cloister. There are several types. There are 3 primary types, which I did a workshop on that too, because it's a whole bunch of heavy information. But many of you in this room may be Indigo children. They started 100 years ago with the Indigo birthing program. There's 150,000 of them coming in between now and 2012. So there's a lot to do with that. The books that are out right now, I've not seen one that touches what an Indigo child really is. They're describing symptoms, because that's all that's been available. I have behind-the-scenes information because I've been living behind the scenes most of the time. So does that clarify?
The autism, I work with young children, and autism is increasing phenomenally. And they're trying to get all the children in the class
Can't hear you.
along with behavior problems. The autism is increasing at a phenomenal rate. Autistic children, and they've got sometimes 2 kids in a classroom along with behavior, ADD, whatever you want to call it. It's amazing.
The kids are having bioenergetic problems, particularly the ones with higher strength content. And we'll have these problems too. This is some of the stuff that I discussed in the workshop that I had done specifically on coping skills with the coming Earth changes. If we have distortions in our DNA template, it is going, whether we're a child or an adult, it's going to create problems with the new frequencies coming in. We're going to get hypersensitive to certain things. There's going to be a lot of short circuitry going on in the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body. The children that are having the symptoms, and even adults that are having, they like to throw labels like schizophrenia on people who happen to have abduction experiences. You know, the whole psychiatry paradigm is getting to the point where it's harmful to people. Because everything that's happening with fourth strand activation, which is our next natural step of evolution, as we go through the still activation cycle, we're supposed to activate our 4th DNA strand. You get out-of-body experience. You get interdimensional communication. You get all these type of things, and you go to a regular, standardly trained psychiatrist, and they will tell you you have a disease, and they will try to put you on a drug to stop it. That is scary. That's why at some point I would like to address groups of psychiatrists and say, why don't you look at this paradigm? This is 15-dimensional physics, and showing where the identity structure plugs into it. Do you think maybe you might be missing something? Yeah? Okay, I do want to get back online here, so we can get through this program. Okay, I think I covered most of these. Let's see. Oh, that's the other one. We got the next one up. All righty. 7 primary methods of visitor manipulation. Okay. Monitoring, physical, and astral abduction. Okay, monitoring, if you live down here, you can pretty well be assumed that you're being monitored by somebody. At least by your own higher identity structure, which is good. That kind of monitoring is good for you. Because it's just the rest of yourself saying, wake up, so we can get together here and, remember. But monitoring is also being used on a large scale by every one of the visitor races. They're monitoring everybody on the planet to see what is going to happen in the next 17-year period with the negative agendas, including the human Illuminati government. I mean, has anybody ever heard of Echelon? Yeah. This is basically a right to spy on anybody at any time. They do it through the phone lines. Certain key words that you might say on a phone conversation triggers those computer banks to start monitoring your phone calls. And then, of course, there's people that monitor the tapes and that kind of stuff. That's the small level of it. There's also all sorts of technologies being designed to spy on people. They want to know everything from genetic content. That's a big one as far as the negative agendas. They want to know genetic content. Because what some of the agendas, the negative agendas, are trying to do is orchestrate a program of genocide against the races they don't want here, which are the indigos, the rail lines, the regular root race humans that they feel are below their use level. So there's a lot of monitoring going on in all sorts. There are implants that are put in with certain abductions. Some of them are physical implants. You don't have to have a physical implant to be monitored. One of the real sneaky little things that they're doing, I think it's kind of funny because we're taught that interdimensional science is not reality, it's fiction. Yet the government is using it very actively and very well. You know, the remote viewing programs they used to do, that supposedly they didn't work, so they gave them up. They didn't give up these programs. But they not only went into remote viewing, which is out-of-body astral projection to spy on things that are not in your physical locale, they also know how to do remote manipulation. These are humans, not just ETs. These are humans that sit in laboratories. They're part of the interior government, and they will go and they will have hit lists as far as people to keep an eye on, people to implant. They can do frequency implantation through the astral field. They've learned to become D4 functional, fourth dimension functional. They started with remote viewing, and it went further. And this is why they're making sure you don't think even the remote viewing went anywhere, because they don't want it to be discovered. That they can literally send people out in out-of-body states, target other people's astral bodies, and implant them, or put in mind tapes. These are like, sort of like telepathic communication, except it's forced, where they can literally create an electromagnetic pattern that contains, just like your computer screen, it's really dealing with a digital language, but it can pull up pictures for you. Well, if you put certain digital configurations in the brain waves, it will pull up pictures for you or words for you. They are, many of the government guys in One World Order agenda are implanting people with thought programs. Literally, mind control wheels. It's like a CD playing in your brain, and you think it's you. They're experimenting with these at this point. 2003 is the target. These are certain type of things that are happening with the ET, with the negative ET guys. And also because in, I believe it's August 14th, 12th of 2003, there's something called a magnetic peak happening in the electromagnetic fields of the planet, which makes the dimensional blend much easier. Now, this is the first time, I believe, since 1900 that this magnetic peak occurred at this strength. It's a prime time to bring in infiltration. It's a prime time to start mind control programs. And that is a date that they're aiming for. The August 12th, it's actually, I believe it runs from about August 8th to August 17th is the real range, but about the 12th is when it peaks out. When the Earth does its magnetic grid peak, that's when the negative Illuminati that are involved with, see, I have to make a distinction between the Illuminati involved with the Anu and the ones that are involved with the Draconians. This is the Draconian agenda. They are planning to orchestrate through the HARP program and through a couple of other programs that are similar, that are connected, a mass mind control thing.
What about chemtrails? Is that connected?
As far as the genocide program.
What is?
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails.
There's airplanes flying overhead and dropping all sorts of interesting stuff on us that they keep telling us isn't going to hurt us. They're seeding right now. They're seeding, from what I was told about the chemicals, they're seeding certain inert biological agents right now. And there's a fourth activator that they're aiming for around the same period of 2003 that will create, it's a hybrid virus that they're planning to use with these. It's not being used yet, but it is on the agenda. This is where the stuff gets scary. Where we realize, we look up in the skies, we see these planes flying overhead, dropping stuff on our head. This isn't just fantasy anymore, you know. And I'm not the paranoid type, you know. A lot of the big con is, oh, anybody that starts talking about this stuff, they fit into a category called conspiracy theorists. You know, those paranoid, psychotic people that nobody normal listens to. That's part of the mind control. There's people who do know what's going on, or trying to tell people, but the mainstream is being brainwashed into believing that they're, you know, wacky or something. If we look at the pieces we have sitting before us, we have the HARP project. Do you really think that thing is harmless? There's some good voice about it out there. You know, angels don't play that part, I think is one of them. Okay, it's really worth looking into if you need convincing, because it's all around us. If you learn to see things for what they really are. So, anyway, we have all sorts of issues, and I don't want to go into the scary stuff, because there's a lot of stuff out there already. You can look that up. You can go on the internet and find conspiracy theories from here until eternity, and probably about 75% of them are right. the other 25% aren't. What's most important is knowing that, okay, what if the worst case scenario is there? What you need to know most is what to do about it. And that's what I'm trying to teach. That's why I don't spend a lot of time getting people scared about it. I'm not going to get you scared about something unless I can tell you in the same space how to fix it or how to handle yourself against it. Because I look at it this way. If it was all so bad and doom and gloom and there was no solution, I would rather not know, personally. I mean, if the world's going to end and I was going to be destroyed and there's not a darn thing I could do about it, let me enjoy my last few weeks or years or whatever. Don't even tell me. But it's not that. That's not the case. It doesn't have to go this way. There are things being orchestrated now within the Guardian nations that are trying to stop this thing of 2003. And we may be able to do it. The Peru trip that I'm going on in August that we've been asked to do some grid recoding is part of this too. So there's a lot being done. We're part of it. It's multidimensional, many thousands of different races involved in this. So I don't teach people to focus on the worst case scenario. I teach you that if it happens, you already have the tools, the personal tools of integration and learning how to handle your space. Worst comes to worst, if it gets really bad down here, you take a Stargate out. And that's an option that has not been here in thousands and thousands of years. But it will be here. If this place doesn't turn out real well, if the plans to get things back on course here don't work well, there are evacs planned. But they're only going to be able to be done with people who have the DNA that can pass through Stargates. That's why the Guardians are introducing the bioregenesis programs. What's nice about the bioregenesis programs, something called critical mass. And this is one of the things that the reptilian government people really want to stop the indigos for, because the reptilians, the indigos know about this. If you can take a small group of people and get their DNA up to a really high activation level, it'll have a ripple effect through the race template. We are all linked through the unified field of the dimensional space that we live in. Our frequency will affect everybody else's frequency. If you get a proportionately small group of people up to a very high DNA activation level, which is the ability to hold very high frequency, it will raise the frequency and activate the DNA in the race pool. So even the people that don't want to hear a thing about any of this, if there's enough, a core group that can get their DNA activated very high between now and 2012, it can pull the whole race along. And that's what they're aiming for. That's what they're hoping for. That's why we're introducing the Cathara Biospiritual Healing System. There's not one mention of ETs in that book. There's a reason for this. A lot of people out there don't want to hear about ETs. It's the healing system that teaches you how to use your bioenergetic field more effectively. It also builds the Mahara seal. It also triggers activation of your DNA and your Kundalini and your Merkaba vehicle. Okay? Yeah. They're just some of the little things that it does for you along the way. We don't advertise it on that. We tell the people that have a consciousness that can understand that about it. But it's just simply being marketed as this will begin to activate your natural blueprint for health, which it does. It begins to help across the board. But by the way, it also does this stuff that's going to get you through this period that you don't want to know about. So there's a lot of things that are being done. That's why we're very optimistic. Okay, I'm going to get into the environment. There's a manipulation. Here we go. We got through the monitoring. The physical is pretty obvious. There are people that are literally being hijacked by government people and never return, or returning and being brainwashed or saying the opposite of what they used to say to get them in trouble. There's this happening on a physical level with humans. There's also, and I've heard a lot of stories about people going to UFO conferences and they annoy them enough to all of a sudden they get these really weird diseases right before them die. What you don't usually hear about is the fact that some of these electromagnetic pulse technologies can be very specifically targeted, and they can disrupt the heart rhythms, which means they can induce heart attack. They can disrupt the natural biorhythms, which means they can create cancer. This is the power that is now in the hands of our Illuminati government guys. And it wouldn't have been in the hands of them if the Zetas hadn't given it to them between the 1930s and the present. So there's a lot of really weird things going on. But again, if you know how to do the Mahara seal, if you get these techniques moving in your field, those EMP technologies are not going to work on you. They can beam at you all they want, but those frequencies in your field will buffer them. They'll send a signal back. There's also ways to I usually don't do that because I just let the universe take care of balancing things, but you can also reflect things back. If you find something throwing energy at you that's meant to harm you, once you get D4 functional and start to be able to see in the astral level a bit, you can throw certain pulses back. You know, just what it threw at you, just throw it back in the same vector or the same line of transmission, and it backfires on them. You know, but I try not to get into psychic combat too much. There's higher things to do. You know? But anyway, these are some of the things going on. We have the astral abductions, where they literally pull part of the consciousness, the part of the consciousness that's associated with fourth dimensional frequencies. That's your astral body, your astral mind, your astral consciousness. The good guys and the negative guys both know how to initiate out-of-body experience on people. They can both pull you out of body. Once you learn how to pull yourself out of body, nobody else can pull you out of body unless you want to go. So that's part of the reason we teach out of bodies. Once you get D4 functional, they can't mess with you in D4. And what the really wonderful thing is about all of this, we have a 15-dimensional matrix. And the government guys and the negative reptilian guys that are working down here thinking they're so hot because they're messing with everybody on D4, most of them can't go beyond D4. If you can learn to go D5, they can't do a thing to you. This is why raising consciousness, which is the same thing as activating higher DNA strands, which is the same thing as building your Merkaba vehicle and activating your Kundalini, they're all connected. Once you do this stuff, you're out of their league. They can't mess with you. And this is why they're trying to suppress this information. They have tried to suppress it for thousands of years. Because you cannot control someone who's in control of themselves. Okay? Now let's see. Okay, scalar mind control. I was just talking about these. The EMP technology, scalar pulse. Okay, bioneurological blocking. This is something I just want to address briefly. I think I mentioned it earlier in the first lecture. The Zetas use this a lot when they want to immobilize you to take you on an abduction. They usually use it through a mechanical apparatus. Looks like a little silver wand type thing. And it casts certain frequencies that interrupt the brainwave patterns, particularly in the areas of the brain that control motor skills and movement. And they're able to create what's called a bioneurological block, a temporary freezing, where you're literally, you have no motor abilities left because they disconnect the brain from the motor abilities, from the nervous system. So that's a technology that's used a lot with the Zetas. The Guardian Zetas, the ones that work with the Guardians, very rarely will use that unless somebody goes into panic. Now, it won't hurt you if it's used in the right way. And if somebody, if you know, a little gray that's a good guy appears because they've been asked to, because the person's soul matrix said he wants them to start having contact so they can start realizing they had a contract for these things, and the person freaks, they're scared to death, you know, because of the encounter. Sometimes it will be used to calm until they can be taken and counseled. But very rarely. Where it's usually mostly used is with negative abductions, where they're taking you in for medical experimentation and that kind of thing. Okay. Again, if you know how to handle your biofields, they can't run it on you. If you have, all you have to do is when they try to, if you see a little gray pop up with a silver wand in his hand, pull up your Maharic seal, and it's not that hard to do, and you're going to get the papers up tonight, and I'm going to run you through a quick version of it. First of all, you may get a very strange reaction from that little gray. They kind of do one of those, like, uh-oh. And it's like, does not compute. They do this mental thing back to command center. They don't know what to do with it. They're only little robots anyway. They're, you know, some of them are biological, but they don't think for themselves. So you can actually take the upper hand in an attempted abduction experience by knowing how to handle your biofields. And then you get your pillar up, your Maharic seal pillar, and then you go, what do you want? You know? They're not used to this kind of thing. So there's a lot of advantages of learning the scalar for template technologies. All right, another thing I wanted to address, this is one of the reasons I didn't want to get myself in trouble staying for the crop circle meeting, because there was a lot of wonderful things I'm sure that the gentleman had shared, but I didn't want to put a frequency out in the room that started stimulating question asking in a way he didn't want to go into. Crop circles are actually, they began here, as a form of mass scalar frequency mind control. They are, again, I will go back to what we're going to learn how to do with our scalar technologies. When we begin to work with bioregenesis technologies, we use something called geomancies. These are symbol codes that are actually scalar waveguides. When you put a symbol code into your template, into your body template, it will direct the scalar configurations in that area. It can activate certain things or shut certain things down. It starts transmitting frequency depending on what geometrical form. It's a symbol code that serves as a waveguide. These are the principles of cheilontic morphogenetic science. They're mathematical waveguides. We use them in the body when we're working with cheilontic science and cathara healing to stimulate the DNA, to reactivate the templates. What you're seeing as crop circles on the ground are mathematical symbol codes that are directing the scalar frequencies of the planetary grids. They transmit frequency in the ultra-low and ultra-high frequency bands. And that frequency affects the bioenergetic fields of everything on the planet. Some of them are good. Some of them are not good. When you begin to be able to sense the energy signature behind things, you'll be able to tell which ones fit into which category. It started as a draconian trick. The first ones that started manifesting quite a long time ago were actually experiments by the Zetas and Draconians. When the guardian races saw what was being done, because this not only affects the people, this affects the literal planetary scalar grids, there were also counter-reactive ones put in, where you might have one in this continent, and that's on a ley line that connects to the grids over here. So the good guys have put a counteractive one over here to neutralize that one. It's been a game of almost tic-tac-toe. You have one, and at this point, you don't know who's making which ones. Now you have humans running around in fields trying to make them too, which is that they don't do the same thing. But man-made ones don't quite do the same thing as the ET ones. So most people don't realize that these pretty pictures on the ground are far more than trying to warn us about that, there's somebody out there and they're starting to let us know that they're there. It's a lot more than that. These are cheilontic morphogenetic science scalar technologies in use. Some of them are good and some of them aren't. What's nice about the good ones, once you start to be able to feel, and you can feel it with the heart chakra, the fourth chakra right about here. You'll get a feel of either aversion or an expansion when even looking at the pictures of certain ones. You can use, even from a picture, without even having to go there, you get the good expansive feeling from one. You can learn to project your energy into it, bring back its energy signature, and it has all sorts of data recorded, encoded in. You can tell by how it affects your heart chakra, which is connected to your astral body, which is connected to your E2 emotional body and your second chakra. You can tell if something is good for you or not, and you can take the benefit if you find a crop circle. If you see a picture of a crop circle that's good, you can learn to move part of your consciousness into it through the heart chakra, and then inhale it back in and take an imprint. And you've taken the encoded data, the electrically scalar encoded data, from that image, from that symbol code, into your body. You just don't want to do it with the negative ones, so you got to get used to sensing them first. Okay. So that's one of the things that I wish more people knew about crop circles, because they are a real phenomenon, but there's a lot more to it than most people realize.
So if the farmers go out with their plows and tear all that up, does that change it?
It doesn't change it any more than if you took a marker and say you were going to induce a certain symbol code into a certain chakra, and you drew with a marker on your body the picture of the symbol code, and you brought it in through the natural processes of breathing, and then you washed it off. You still brought it into the template, and it still has its effect. So even after they're gone, they will still have their effect. That's why when the Guardians saw the negative ones coming in and using this technology, they couldn't just come in and erase them. It doesn't work that way. You can make them go away on the surface, but they're already encoded into the grids of the scalar templates of the planet. So what the remedy is to reprogram them by putting on the same ley line or energy conduit to it a new set of programs that alters the original one and makes it harmless. And that's what's been being done out here. It's like alien chess, chess game. We're watching it in the field. It's there. Let's see. Okay, the next one, disinformation through government infiltrate, CT contact, channeling, ancient visits, those kind of things. I think I talked a lot about that already as far as how a lot of the angels are actually ETs and they're not well attended. And most people are very well aware of the disinformation coming out through the governments. We are disinformed from the time we set foot in preschool, and it only gets worse from there. We're taught sciences that have nothing to do with the sciences the governments are using, because the governments are using for the last 70 years interdimensional sciences. You don't hear a lot about that in science class. It's not allowed to be taught. There are control things in here that we really have no idea. We're being disinformed about lots and lots of things. We're being disinformed about organizations like AMA, FDA, lots of other A's and B's and all sorts of other letters, and I'm not going to say too much on tape so I don't get in trouble. But there's certain programs being done here that we've come to accept as common knowledge. This is good for us. No, it isn't. We have a network of multinational corporations pumping a pharmaceutical industry. Did you ever watch TV and watch the commercials on your regular? How many of these are drugs these days? You have drugs for every problem. Can't get it up, can't get it down, can't breathe, can't do this, can't do that. There's a drug for everything these days. They will invent diseases to give to you to make you think you have, so you need a drug to fix it. This is not an accident. This is part of the mind control disinformation propaganda. It's right before our faces, and we're being taught to think it's normal. Right? There's other more sinister things, such as the example of the ADD issue, where literally diseases are being created. If they would do that to children, what would they do to the rest of us? If they would literally, in order to make sure certain children that had propensity for psychic development, like the indigo children, to filter them out, or at least to get control of them, they would make a disease that lots of other children would fit into too. A disease that is counteracted and supported with drug therapy to repress the disease. They don't even know what percentage of the people that are going to be affected are indigos and what are going to be just regular children. They care so much about our children that they're letting our children be put on drugs as a legal thing to do. And our medical professions and our psychiatric professions are being taught that this is the right way. They're not bad people, they're not evil people. They're being taught a certain bunch of things in textbooks and colleges. They're being taught stuff with information controlled by government corporations. Many of the government corporations control book industry. They control what information gets put in textbooks for schools. The control factors here are frightening when you really start to look. But again, we have the solutions if we're willing to move beyond that. Say, forget the propaganda, let me learn something new, because I see where this is going, and this is going nowhere. We have, at least, we're being given a chance to learn a new paradigm through which we can hopefully get some control over ourselves and our beings.
Is it immunizations that are causing this future?
That's someone I didn't want to touch.
We don't have time.
We don't know. We
No,
don't touch
I know.
immunizations here. No, and I don't want to get myself in too much trouble as far as, if you say enough and you scream it out loud enough and you're identifying all the little pieces of the big picture and putting them together where people say, oh my God, this is really happening, isn't it? That's when you get in trouble, and I don't need to create havoc in my personal life right now by doing that. Immunizations, let's just say, are a tagging mechanism that has more of a future reference thing than an immediate thing right now. And it's run by the same group of people who are running the rest of the nonsense, which is the Illuminati secret government backed by the Zetas and the Dracos primarily. Okay. Physical implants and certain varying infections. Most people know what that means. You get abducted and they put something physical in some part of your body in order to track you or to alter your brain signals so they can keep you under biological control. Shape-shifting and cloning. Okay, this is one that too many people know about. Certain gene codes, such as the Nephidim reptilian human strains, have a recessive gene, some of them, that allows the body to shapeshift. It could turn into other things. It could appear as other people. It's only certain strains that can happen. The draconian avatars, let's call them, the dark avatars from the 10th dimensional frequencies, they like to body snatch these bodies. They literally displace the essence that was born into it, which you can do if you know how to play with frequency in the interdimensional spectrum. And they integrate their own consciousness template into it, take over the DNA, and then activate that dormant code, where they can start shapeshifting and looking like anything they want to. There's not a whole lot of them out there right now. More want to come. So that's one of the things you don't hear too much about. Another way shapeshifting is used is some of the draconians, the Dracos, not draconian, the Dracos that are half human, half Dracon, they still look like Dracon, but they have certain ones have the ability to temporarily trigger the human level of their gene code where they can appear human. So there's a lot of this kind of stuff happening.
Any
body snatcher. That was another one. So it fits in with what I was just talking about as far as displacing an organic essence by overrunning its frequency and literally dislodging it into the dimensional field, where it kind of goes into dimensional warp, and it's a scary space to be as a consciousness because you kind of fragment. And they take over bodies. I have had a number of people come to me at this point that had field possession. People think possession isn't real. That's because they don't remember the age of sciences. In the old days, back in Egypt, and I remember because I had an incarnation back there, and we ran an ascension school. One of the first things every initiate had to go through was field clearing, and that was getting rid of all the other things that tacked onto their astral body that weren't meant to be there. This is what's happening now. And if it gets bad enough, particularly when you're dealing with the higher levels of consciousness that are coming from the negative matrices, they have a lot of power. You're coming 10-dimensional frequencies coming into your body. Unless you have your 10th dimensional consciousness functional, you have quite a battle on your hands. We're doing body snatcher backing for people. This is one of the things Cathara healing helps with. If you do the Maharic seal, which we are going to get to before we leave here, it will stop that from happening. It will also start to dislodge. If somebody's trying to do that with you, it will start to dislodge the attempted infiltration of your battlefields. The real reason that the Guardian Alliance is pushing so much of the information on bioregenesis right now, part of it is to give us back the ability to do ascension. But the most urgent part is so we don't get blindsided here and have a whole race end up field possessed by the negative matrices. We're really not ready for this level of stuff. We could have walked into this a lot easier than crash. Here's chaotic science, and you crash, here's bioregenesis, and you're kind of left like, what? Because we're not taught this so. This is the key to getting us free. Later we plug in the details. Later we worry about how to figure out, okay, where does physics and all that fit in. Now, since we don't have so much time left, and I can go for like 20 minutes on each page, I'm gonna get one of these for each of you. So you will have all of the stuff that's in here. We get into a page here that has, I'm not even gonna put it up. It shows you more on what a bioneurological block is, what a frequency fence is. And we get into some pictures of crop circles. These things I don't have to go into with you now. I wanna get you right into the scalar technologies. And particularly into the Maharic seal technique. Okay, can you go to page 15? Now, what we're going to be looking at in this diagram is over on this side. This is part of the Cathara healing program. It's more complicated, and I have to do a course on that for you. But what I want you to know is about these things. Can you lift it up a little bit so I can see the front, please? Okay. Now, these things here, slanting and all of this, they're part of the body template, okay, the scalar template of the body. They are dormant right now. They're called shields. They're crystalline structures, crystalline meaning that they're composed of scalar wave grids that are formed on helons and particuli grids. They're dormant parts of the natural anatomy that become active as energy fields within the bioenergetic field once certain levels of the DNA are activated and once certain energies are run to open certain chakras. Now, when we teach the chakra system, we teach a 15 chakra system, and we're going to get into that structure in the Sunday workshop. We're going to get into the structure of what you have there, where your 15-dimensional anatomy is, and what plugs into what. But right now, to understand the Maharic seal technique, there's going to be a certain symbol, which I'll talk about in a minute, that's going to be used. We have something called a main vertical current. It's a current of energy that runs down the center of the body and runs down into the Earth's core. Connects each of us to the Earth's core. It also runs up the top of the head and out into space into the higher levels of your own morphogenetic scalar structure going up the dimensional fields. Okay. We are going to use a particular symbol code that activates the 12th dimensional frequencies. We're going to run it down, main vertical current, down into the Earth's core, where the 13th chakra is. Now we're going to use the breath to do this too. breath is the key. Okay, the breath will push or pull. That's how you push or pull energy through the body system. If you want to pull energy up, say, from the earth at 3 feet, you inhale. If you want to project energy from the fourth chakra upward, you go, and blow it upward. So there's push-pull with the breath. The breath activates Kundalini. And the Tibetans used to know this. They have a lot of mantras and breathing rhythms and all that. We're going to use simple inhale, exhale, breathing things to direct the energy of this symbol down to the earth's core. The symbol, because of what it is, a scalar guide that will stimulate into activation dormant scalar imprints in the planetary grids. The planetary grids, the scalar grids of the planet, are called the planetary shields. And they are the same thing. We have our personal shields. They're frequency spectra that open up once certain coding in the scalar fields are activated to bring certain frequencies to life. So we will be taking a symbol code, bring it down to Earth's core, using that to first activate, momentarily, the planetary shields on the 12th dimensional level. Every time we do this, it helps the planet to hold 12th dimensional frequency, which means it helps to create a frequency barrier for protection in the border system. So we're helping the planet every time we do this too. Then we bring it back up through, from the Earth's core, back up to a position 12 inches below the feet. That is a spot that doesn't have a thing like this on it yet. It has a little crystalline frequency, standing wave pattern, that once it's stimulated by the energy from the Earth's shield, will begin to activate its own shield. This, once it activates, is called the Mahart shield. That is the part of your scalar anatomy that corresponds to dimensions 12, 11, and 10. That holds the frequencies of your consciousness and the frequencies of your higher dimensional identity that correspond to that harmonic fourth. We activate this, and using the breath, then we bring the symbol back up, bring it up to the heart chakra, and then up towards the 14th chakra, which is about 36 inches above the head. This creates a live line, a conduit line, between the earth energies and your energies. It activates your Mahart seal, and after a few breaths, this seal, this configuration that forms in the auric field, will literally pop and change into a standing pillar of energy that runs from the Earth's core all the way up to your 14th chakra. You end up standing in a pillar, a scalar pillar of energy. And when you work with this, like frequently, you can start to feel this thing around you. And then you can start to expand it and include other people in it, which helps trigger their Mahart shields. This is a part of our anatomy. We should be taught about from kindergarten, but we haven't been able to remember in thousands of years. The technique is not too hard. Well, it depends on what version you get to. We're going to do a real simple version tonight, just to give you the idea and to get you started. Also, by doing it with me, even if it's a simple version, just once, because my shield is activated, it'll start transmitting frequency into the room, which will start affecting your Mahart shields. Now, if you don't want it done, that intent alone will block it, because you all have free will. And it's not my job to, impose Mahart shield activation on anybody. But having the frequencies running through, that the guardians are able to run through my DNA because of the activation in it, it will provide a field in the room that will assist everybody who wants to try this to hold that frequency a little better, to get used to doing it yourself. So that's why I'm going to run you through a quick version. In this package that you'll get, if they haven't done tonight, I think those will get them tonight. If not, we'll have them ready, for tomorrow. There's a little bit longer version. It's still called the temporary version. That works good. That one I would suggest you would read onto a tape yourself. Even if you can't remember the steps, it's okay. Just read it onto a tape, put your headphones on, and just follow what the tape is telling you to do. It's still creating the same effects in your biofield. Okay. Then for people who are the real diehards, who really want to understand this stuff, they can take Cathartic Biospiritual Healing and learn the 26-step wonders. I forget how many steps in that. Again, it's one that needs to be put on a tape recording to run you through, but each level is even more powerful than the one before. But even the level that I'm going to do right now with you, even that level alone is enough to give you a temporary field protection. There's a big difference between this and the New Age concept of bringing in the white light. Okay? White light corresponds to the frequencies of D12. However, if you cannot ground or anchor that frequency in your DNA or in your body template, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good to put a white light bubble around you. It'll sit there, but anything can still go after you from the astral level. You're not anchoring that energy. What the Maharic seal technique does is it activates in the DNA template and in the body template the configurations of scalar standing wave points that can hold that frequency. So when you begin to run the energies, you will be able to hold them in the body, not just have them floating around and dissipating around you, like that's what happens when you do this without anchoring it. So there's a big difference in technique between a lot of the stuff you'll see coming off the internet and the New Age stuff. Some of it's great, but others of it, they sound good. But when you start to know the anatomy and know how the pieces work, you see they don't work. There are people teaching Merkaba mechanics, where they're teaching you to blend your field with other people's. That's absolute insanity. You take on the energy of everybody else around you, including the karmic pattern and any distortions in the DNA. You really need to know your anatomy, and that's why we're teaching that. But tonight, we'll teach some of the anatomy in the Sunday workshop. That's where you're going to get to know your parts and that kind of thing, so you get more control. Want to do this exercise? Can you go to page 14? That's the one right before that. I want to show you the symbol. I'll talk for a minute about what symbols do again. Symbols are mathematical configurations. They're electromagnetic instructions to the scalar templates of the body. They are scalar wave guides. Okay. This appears first as, it's called the Hierophant symbol code. And it's a very ancient symbol code because it's a primary geomancy. The six-pointed star is called the Merkaba star, actually. It is the geomancy, or the entire scalar wave pattern of the 12th dimensional frequency. Okay. There are certain other ones. There's the pentagram, for instance. That classic symbol is the standard scalar wave configuration of the 5th dimensional frequency bands. So geomancies and forms, shapes, are platonic solids, all of these things. They have a translation in terms of what they mean in the scalar spectrum of the interdimensional scale. When we're using this one, a lot of people recognize this as the Star of David, but it's a lot more than David's. It belonged to a lot of people before it belonged to David. Okay. Yeah. It basically symbolizes the two electromagnetic fields, the Merkaba fields, the electrical field coming down and the magnetic field coming out that surrounds all forms on each dimensional level. That's that vehicle of light. If you get those fields spinning in the right ratio with each other, it creates shift in angular rotation and particle spin, which creates ascension and the ability to move through space-time. Okay, so there's a lot more associations than just being Jewish with this. Okay, once upon a time, it became the symbol for the Jewish faith because they had a lot of, in the Kabbalah and those kind of things, a lot of the workings of the Merkaba mechanics. They had part of those teachings. So it was part of that sacred knowledge. But it's not a symbol that belongs just to Jewish people. It belongs to everybody. So what we're going to do is, when we're using frequency, we want to direct specific frequency. We want to direct D12 frequency to stimulate our D12 shields. There's also something else you need to use with this to activate the Maharic seal in the planet and in yourself. You don't need just D12 from this spectrum. You need to combine it with D11 frequency from the antiparticle universe. Okay? There's a specific way to do this, and it comes out into a color wave spectrum. You can direct a very specific frequency in the multidimensional spectrum if you know the wavelength spectra and what color that looks like. You can use the color to direct the specific frequency. And that's what we teach in Cathartic Spiritual Healing. We give you the frequency charts all the way up the dimensional scale, so you know when you're using a certain color, what frequency you're directing. Now, when we're doing the Maharic seal, we're going to be using a combination of the 12th dimensional frequency that comes out to look like white, the color white, and we're going to combine that with the 11th dimensional frequency that is actually called silver black. It's a very dark silver. It's into black light spectra. When you put the two together, you get a pale silver. So pale silver is going to be the color that we use to direct frequency. We are directing scalar waves again. Okay? So we're going to visualize a 6-pointed star, which is actually 2 6-pointed stars put together. So there's actually 12 points there, but they're put together. You have one in white and one in dark silver. You end up with a pale silver 6-pointed star that is really a 12-pointed star. It has all of the frequencies of the antiparticle side and the particle side going up, enough to activate the Maharic seal in the mind. So very simply, by using your mind to direct an image of a picture, you can directly alter your DNA template, get it to work at a higher level, and you can create field protection and a whole lot of other things. That's why I say if there's any one technique you're going to learn this one. Because this sets the Maharic seal will create the Maharic shield activation. That Maharic shield is your perfect imprint. That was when you came in through the pre-matter levels, your avatar level of identity, before distortion occurred down in the middle fields. That was your perfect imprint that you came in on. That can be used to regenerate the perfect imprint all the way through, clear out all distortions. You clear out the karmic pattern, it can clear out health problems, it can clear out all sorts of things. It can also make PTs that are not nice close off. So, can somebody do the lights in here? I like to do these with lower light. Did anybody know where the lights are? It helps to concentrate by toning down the light a bit, so you can focus on the inner instead of being distracted by the outer. Now, in these books, you're going to get the longer version. Yeah. In fact, we can shut this off for now. We don't even need that up there. Everybody just remembers
In the front.
That's the symbol, right? It's an easy one to remember. You've seen it for years and years and years. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I think that one too. Is that needed for filming?
You'll be blacked out.
Let's see.
Just the back ones up there.
Yeah, the back ones, that would be nice. Whoever turned them off back there, can you hit the back ones too? I don't know where the switches are. No?
Your face will be black.
Well, that's okay. I mean, even if this, you can still hear my voice, okay? The state is more important than the video. And this. The reason I like to begin teaching people these things with a more subdued atmosphere is because it really tones your consciousness down a little. When lights are bright and there's a lot of stimulation, your consciousness is out here. What we want to do with these exercises is get the consciousness back in to be able to center inside the head and become aware of the internal. And it's harder to do that when you have a lot of stimulation on the outside. Okay. Now we're going to start. I'm just going to start with a little bit of just breathing exercise for a minute, just to get used to being aware of your breath. Inhale slowly for a second. Hold it just for a second or two. And then exhale and let all the tension move out of your body. Try to feel that sensation with the intention. Do a couple of breaths like that. Simple inhale. Exhale. Let your body melt. Let it feel like a wet noodle just kind of sinking down in the chest. Relaxation is very important because it takes you into the alpha brainwave pattern, which is where your body consciousness starts to listen to your conscious mind. I'm casting a frequency now, and I'm hoping it'll kind of, I've been talking at a very high pace most of the evening. I'm going to try to slow it down now. Slow everybody's frequency down a little because this exercise will work better from a more relaxed state. Okay. Now, for a moment, call to mind the image of the Hierophant symbol. Remember, it is a pale silver, six-pointed star. Imagine this image as if it were drawn in pale silver light on the inside of your forehead. That's the location of your sixth chakra. Holding the image in mind on the inside of your forehead, inhale, and while you inhale, bring in that image into the center of the brain, into the pineal gland. It'll take a little while to get used to using the breath to move energy. Because at times it will be inhale and do this at the same time, but I can't say it simultaneously. So you're breathing in, inhaling, and moving the Hierophant symbol from behind your forehead into the center of your brain, in the pineal gland. It is now positioned over the main vertical current of the body, where it can be moved up and down through the chakra system and through the body template. We're going to use the breath again. Take an inhale breath for a second, and on the exhale, you're going to move the Hierophant symbol down, all the way down to the earth's core, right through the main vertical current, out the legs, down into the ground, and down to the earth's core. And if it didn't go down with the first breath, take another inhale. Push it the rest of the way down, because sometimes you can feel it. It gets stuck on quite down. Now, breathe normally and hold the image of the Hierophant symbol in the center of the earth core. Just imagine what that might look like. I'm going to use the breath for a moment to activate that symbol so we can activate the scalar shield of the planetary grid momentarily. Inhale again, and this time, send energy down into that symbol and out. Out on horizontal plane. See the symbol expand out into a disk of crystalline energy. And now the Hierophant symbol is in the center, and there's a spinning disk deep in the Earth's core, right about halfway through, as if it was the disk of spinning energy, halfway through the Earth. When you really want to make this exercise work strongly, you would take several steps, several times. You would breathe in and send more energy down into the Earth's shields. Because the more energy you send, the more energy it will send back up to you. But for now, once is enough. So now, with your attention down in the center of the Earth, at the Earth's core, the Hierophant symbol at the center of the Maharic shield of the Earth, we are going to use the energy from the Maharic shield of the Earth to activate our own Maharic shield. Remember in the discussion, our Maharic shield is 12 inches below the feet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the inhale breath this time to inhale the Hierophant symbol up from the Earth's core to a point 12 inches below the feet. So inhale and visualize the Hierophant symbol moving up to a point 12 inches below the feet. And then exhale gently. And when you get accustomed to this exercise, as you make that move of inhaling the Hierophant symbol up, you will notice that it also takes with it a cord of energy from the Earth's core, as if the Hierophant symbol is now attached, and it has a tail. And that tail connects to the Earth's core energies, and the Hierophant symbol drags that energy up to the point of your own Maharic shield. It's a silver cord of energy. Try to sense the silver cord of energy that runs from the center of the Earth up to 12 inches below your feet. That's going to be your energy feed line. It's called the Planetary Biofeed Interface System. There are many things you can do with this energy, because this pale silver energy is non-polarized D12 frequency. It is the strongest healing frequency on the planet. So now, let's put our attention back at 12 inches below our feet, where the Hierophant symbol is. Inhale and exhale and push energy into the Hierophant symbol. And as you do, expand another disk of energy out on a horizontal plane, 12 inches below your feet. This is your Maharic shield. Try to feel the reality of it. And if you didn't the first time, inhale more energy and exhale it into the Maharic shield. If you play with this several times at home, you'll start to get the sensation of this platform of crystalline energy that you're walking around on. That's a really neat sensation. Now, to really get a very strong Maharic pillar, which is the objective of doing this, that is the Maharic seal, the pillar of frequency, of scalar frequency that comes up in the biofield. To get that strong, at home you want to practice for a while, bring more energy. You'd use the inhale breath to draw energy up from Earth's core, up through the silver cord, and then expand it out into your Maharic shield. You do that several times until you start to feel it vibrating. You can feel an energy there. For now, we don't have to worry about getting there yet. But what will happen next is we'll take one more inhale, draw energy up the silver cord, exhale it out through the Maharic shield, and this time you'll notice a little flutter feeling in the Maharic shield itself, and all on its own, it will do a little popping sensation, and you will notice it folds up from being a disc below your feet into a pillar of light that runs up around you as if you were standing in it. And that pillar of light extends way down into the Earth's core and way up into the atmosphere and all the way up the 15-dimensional structure. This is your Maharic seal. You can strengthen this further by imagining again, still positioned down below your feet, 12 inches below your feet. You have the Maharic, the silver star. You have the Hierophant symbol. Now, you can energize your heart seal pillar more by using the inhale breath to draw more frequency, more energy up from the Earth's core through the solar cord. This time, pick up the Hierophant symbol and bring it up to the fourth heart chakra, which is right about between the breasts area. And then exhale that energy out into the fourth chakra. The fourth chakra is connected to your astral body, your fourth dimensional astral body. You can take more breaths and bring more energy to fortify the astral body. Bring it up. Expand it out into the fourth heart chakra. And on the final breath, you're going to bring it up, inhale, and push it out real far beyond the chakra, all the way out to try to feel the boundaries of the heart seal pillar that is around you. You can literally, simply by breathing out, by normal breathing, every time you inhale, you're drawing energy up from the Earth's core, and every time you exhale, you're exhaling that energy out into your heart pillar. You're fortifying the heart seal in your field. Try to feel the sensation of the energies that are running. Because right now they're active. They may be little energies right now, but the more you do this, the stronger the energy gets. And you'll be amazed at some of the sensations you may get. You may start to get some kundalini rising and some really warm, tingly spots in areas you don't want to talk about. That pass when the energy balances. You may get spontaneous, clear cognition. All of a sudden your head clears, and you didn't even know it needed clearing. If you work with this technique, you can show yourself the magic and the science of scalar group mechanics. From this space, I'm going to take you a little bit further, and this isn't part of the Maharic seal. What we just did, this is all you need to do for the Maharic seal. The more complicated steps that you can do on audio tape, read it onto the tape yourself, they will help make this stronger and they will help it bond into the DNA even more. But this is good enough if you encounter anything scary. I don't care if it's a mug around the street or a little gray trying to take you for an infection. You pull this pillar up and you can shift the way reality will unfold back into its pattern of perfection. I have had attempted muggings or attempted attacks that were literally deterred. And people shifted and started saying, I'm sorry, and ran away after I pulled up the Maharic seal. It's a very powerful technique. Before we close tonight, I'm going to take us on a little journey since we're in a very nice space here. I'm going to sit down for this one. It's one of my classic journeys into the interdimensional spectrum that I've done a lot in New York City. And they're usually very spontaneous. These are the ones that come out of my fifth dimensional aspect of identity. Ask your fifth dimensional aspect of identity. Is there anything we can do to serve these people? And I just get guided to do something. So that's what is happening now. I'm being guided to call this the plateau of contact. It's the beginning of an exercise I believe we'll be doing in the workshop on Sunday that is creating a space for contact to happen, for subtle contact to begin initiating. I'm getting telepathic dialogue right now from the Guardian Alliance. I have that on a daily basis. They're always in tune with me. That we can bring this group very quickly into a space where they can begin to feel, at least feel or sense, the presence of the Guardian Alliance. It will be done also through your own soul levels of identity. So you're not exposing yourself to anything that will cause you harm or get you off your own natural path of evolution. Okay. Visualize for a moment a spark of blue energy, like blue flame that you would see in a gas flame. Blue gas flame. Visualize the spark at the center of your brain, at the pineal gland. This is a spark of fifth dimensional frequency that you can call a soul spark. You're now going to gently inhale and gently use the exhale breath to push the soul spark down to the base of the spine, right at the tailbone. The tailbone, where the first 8 cells are stored. First 8 cells of your body was created upon. Just breathe for a few moments gently and imagine the blue soul star down at the tailbone. This is going to awaken a bit of the Kundalini energies of the fifth dimensional frequencies. This will allow a bit of the DNA to begin bringing in the fifth dimensional sub-frequencies within the lower strands. It will create a window where the beginning of fifth dimensional consciousness communication can start, which is the level that is actually required for membership in the Guardian Alliance. They work with D4 or lower consciousness, but to become a full contact member where you are assigned to, asked if you want to help heal things, a trust factor of D5 consciousness is needed. With this window to the fifth dimensional frequencies, you'll open an opportunity for contact. And contact won't happen tonight. You'll feel some of the energy coming in tonight, but in about 3 days, you'll begin to feel a shift that has to do with what we're doing right now. A shift that's a little window in your own consciousness that leads to someplace else that your soul would like you to go. So we'll take the spark of blue energy that is down at the tailbone. And we'll now inhale it again, upward. Up to the top of the head, the seventh chakra. And then we'll expand it there into a blue halo of light sitting on top of the head, like a disc of light, colored blue, on a horizontal plane. This image is going to represent a platform of perception that you can learn to use to go when you want to go into a state of fifth dimensional perception. It will take practice, but you can, with practice, get to the point where you can begin to see and perceive from the fifth dimensional level instead of the third dimensional level. You'll be able to see the fourth dimensional level as well. But from the fifth dimensional level, things make more sense. So now with the blue halo spinning on top of your head, we already have our Maharic seals up. I want to stress this. We are going to do a group endeavor where we create one large blue halo hovering in the room like a platform, like a flat spaceship. But don't ever do this kind of exercise with any group unless you have your Maharic seal up, because that seals your personal fields. So you can join in group endeavors without jeopardizing your personal self. There's trickery being done in some of the New Age teachings that will teach you to do something like this without teaching you how to do the Maharic seal. Your fields are sealed right now, so you are safe to do this. Imagine now that the halo of blue energy that spins now above your head, feel it spinning, and the direction doesn't matter. It will spin whatever is most natural for you at this moment. Feel it growing and starting to spin faster, and feel it expanding out and outward. And start feeling it touching the person sitting next to you, touching their field. Start imagining now a large blue halo of energy spinning about maybe 2 feet now up above the group, in the room, with a blue platform of energy. There is a reality scape on top of that platform. You can look at us on the underside of that platform as on one side of the veil. And what's on top of that platform is what's on the other side of the veil. So the platform can be looked at as a veil. You can now take a portion of your consciousness and make it into the form of a small white spark of light. And gently drift. You don't have to use the breath, you can if you want, whatever feels natural. Drift that white spark of your attention up through your crown chakra at the top of your head, then up into the air directly above your head. And first, try to feel the resistance at the level of where that group energy construct hangs in the air. It is a scalar construct. Thoughts are things, they create scalar words. Try to feel the little spark of your consciousness, a little resistance. And when you feel that, you will know you're hitting the bottom of that scalar pattern that we created as a group. Once you hit that resistance, breathe a little bit, be aware of the body, and then inhale, and push yourself through that resistance zone. And quickly, try to feel yourself as a little spark of energy, little spark of energy sitting on top of the platform. Try for a moment to scan what's around you, try to see. You may see at first everything is in a cobalt blue color. dark blue background and a light cobalt blue line work, as if it's a grid. You're beginning to see the fifth dimensional frequencies. In this space, with your attention in this space, I'm going to ask any one of you in the room, and you're not going to tell it to me, you're going to tell it, you're going to broadcast through telepathy, any one of you that would like to initiate contact with a member of the Guardian Alliance. And it is not a contact that it's something you can't get out of. It's something if you want contact, fine. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. This is the place to go and ask for contact, for communication. Try to position yourself there now as a little white spark of light. And for a moment, imagine that white spark of light is stretching out into a body, just like you have down here. And all of a sudden, you have a little double body, a little body of you that's sitting up there. Take the chair with you if you happen to be sitting down. So you see yourself sitting in a chair now, up there, up in the fifth dimensional frequencies. And now imagine that the whole group, this whole room, actually has a version of itself transposed up there in fifth dimensional frequencies. But it's all blue. Imagine it is like a photograph that was taken just with blue filters. That's the frequency of the fifth dimensional frequency, the wave spectrum, primary length, blue. Now, from the area that would be behind me in this room, imagine in the room up there that you see three beings walking towards you, coming into the room from the area behind me here. There are three beings. Each of them are members of the Guardian Alliance, and they are with us in the fifth dimensional frequencies right now. They are not down here physically. They are with us in D5. Try to see them. Try to imagine what they look like. Try to sense their presence with the body of you that's up there in the fifth dimensional frequencies. With some of you, I am watching now, in the fifth dimensional frequencies, the three beings that are members of the Guardian Alliance have separated, and one has gone to the left, one to the right, and one is more in the middle. And they're moving through the people, our fifth dimensional selves up there. Three people have been handed something in the left hand. If you can become aware of this portion of your consciousness, and start making a link to this level of your consciousness, you'll be able to initiate conscious contact with a high guardian type group. Three people have been given something in the left hand, I'm noticing. This has something to do with contact they've already had. They were already contacted by the Guardian Alliance members, but they weren't sure who they were. I am also being told that we will do something similar in the next workshop in preparation for the Skywatch. That if we can reach a certain level of consciousness in the Skywatch, we will be shown some type of verification of our efforts. If we can reach fifth dimensional consciousness, I'm being told that we will see something very interesting to see. We may see something else besides that, because right now there are some other beings that are roaming around there in fourth dimensional frequencies. And some of them are Zetas. Right now, I just would like you to, before we leave, remember what we did of creating the disc as the place between the veils, and then putting a portion of your consciousness up on that disc, and then manifesting an image of your body up there to begin to open the D5 eyes and ears, so you can begin to have a presence there and connect with that level of your identity. That level of your identity is called the archetype. That's the level of you at D5, the control center of the soul matrix. If you can begin to bring in this level of consciousness, you will find many things opening very rapidly for you. Consciousness, understanding, information, contact. We can come back now and just remember what we did. You can take this home with you. Try it tonight. Try to create that platform for contact. It is a beginning. It is a beginning of mass contact by the Guardian Alliance for those who want to participate. And this is news for me, because they didn't tell me that that's what this group was going to be about. So it's probably like, hey, how are we doing? Uh-oh. We're doing overtime. Did that feel good? Did anybody feel any energy shifting yet? Sometimes you do on the first times. Good, okay. I think we better hurry, because I think I'm running overtime. Thank you for coming. I hope you're coming back for Sunday's events. They're not scheduled for anything tomorrow or anything, but thank you for coming. Sure. In this workshop, preparation for contact, you're going to get a crash course in something that I have done almost on every one of these. I've done single workshops on. Now, it's not that important to understand and remember every detail. All right, there is a chart pack to this, and we'll do it on a love donation, which is, we're going broke on this, but if you want the information, I want you to have it available. Everything that's in here that we may have to go by too fast, you can have in the, in the chart pack. Okay, so one of the first things that we're going to get into is, before we get into the first thing on the list there, I'm going to cover a little bit, because we didn't get to cover it in the first lecture, are the DNA sun matrices, which are basically the templates of the different stellar races, and where the human fits into that, and where the indigo humans fit into that, and hybrids, just so we have an idea, a little bit clearer idea of what I talked about before. From there, we're going to go into the part of this material that is the most exciting to me, because it is the most valuable to every person on this planet. It doesn't matter if you believe in ETs, it doesn't matter what you believe in. If you're willing to try a model of looking at identity and at yourself, it's a new model, it's a 15-dimensional model of self. This gives you the keys to the kingdom of your own soul, the kingdom of your own being. It's worth trying, even if it's something newfangled, never heard of it. It's actually not newfangled. It's a very, very ancient system of teaching beings how to become whole while they're in embodiment. So we're going to get into, a little bit, 15-dimensional human anatomy. And we're going to get into the structure of the 15-dimensional mind, because there are levels of mind that go with each level of dimensionalization. So that's one of the things I'm going to try to spend a decent amount of time on. So by the time you leave here, you'll know where your 15 chakras are, for example. You'll know what they are, hopefully. You'll know that you not only have a chakra system, that if you want to learn more about that, you can study some of the Hindu teachings, because they get into that a lot. There's the chakras, but there are also things called huva bodies. Huva means light sound. It's an Anahazi word for meaning light sound. It's an energy field composed of light and sound, which forms scalar waves. Now, I clarified this for one person. I said, we'll talk about